Alright, so award season has officially started because the Golden Globe Awards were last night, and I want to say a congrats to all the winners. But even though that they were highlights that will always be remembered and cherished, and they made all the rounds on social media, people with making memes or like something to really cheer on about. But even with the losses and like snags, to some things that were wrong from it, and so much more to discuss here. And so this will be my recap and breakdown of the Golden Globes, going over everything from the winners to the highlights, and even for what we can expect, especially now going forward into the Oscars as well, because that's going to be a big, huge event to discuss when it comes down to that in March as well. And so if you're new, then be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. But now, let's get right into it. And now, I want to start off by saying with my thoughts on this year's Golden Globes. And I want to say this was a nice show, because especially if you remember all of the nominations that came out, especially for Best Actor, Supporting Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, especially for Best TV Show, Movie, or Best Picture, and Cinematic or Box Office Achievement. And just with those nominations alone, it has people guess like, oh, is this person gonna win? Is this person gonna win? But even though, like, I mean, I did not expect it to be like the unexpected, because even with like award shows these days, because especially for who you all voted for, you never know what to expect. You never know who is gonna win, because there could only be one. But I feel like there were some like losses and snags that happened, because even though that, like, especially with these movies that we all loved last year, expected to win, but especially with the winners that I want to point out right here, and then I'll go down to the list of all the winners this year now. And so starting off with Zoldana, and she won her first Golden Globe for Amelia Perez, and I have never seen it, but even with that win, I'm pretty sure it was very much deserved, because we all know her from the MCU. That alone, I think that was enough to stand that as well. And even moving on to with Jeremy Allen White, that won Best Supporting Actor in The Bear, which is obviously deserved, as it should, because even with his performance and what his character arc as Carmine has developed as part of the entire show, it has really developed a lot. But even though I thought The Bear season 3 was like a downgrade from the previous 2 seasons, but even though that we're getting a season 4, it was obviously enough to get him nominated. But even with Demi Moore, that won Best Female Actor, and that is with her performance in The Substance. You know, that movie was one of the most disturbing horror films I've ever seen, but Demi Moore pulls off an incredible and stellar performance, as that movie gave like so much messages, clear ones, especially from with the dark side of Hollywood. And plus, even with that movie, that made it into my top 10 for 2024. But I'm glad that it's recognizable, especially within the horror genre, especially what that movie has been through as well. And now, speaking of which, I want to talk about with Shogun, because like, I mean, with that show, because like, even though I have not seen it, especially as people claim to be like the best show of last year, that won all the awards, especially for Best Actress for Anna Sawari, and Best Actor, and also Best TV Show. And I think it is rightfully deserved that like they win it, because especially like, because just with the structure and the layout of that show, it kind of felt like a drama. Especially people love that show because they love good writing, they love a good storytelling, and that's what the show basically is about it. But you know, I gotta get down to even watching it, because even with a Shogun that took home like most of the awards, but even with the other ones, I want to talk about with the losses, because especially with the winner for Best Limited TV Series, and I am like, I was frustrated, especially when The Penguin didn't win, but it went to Baby Reindeer, which was a Netflix show, I believe. But just, I mean, just with that alone, kind of makes me like upset. But like, hey, like, I'm just glad that with one of the nominations won for The Penguin, and that's with Colin Farrell, that won a Best Actor in a TV series. And just with The Penguin alone, that's one of my favorite, and probably the best comic book show in 2024, and what Matt Reeves has adapted. But even Kristen Maloney that like did not win like her award as like best actress in like a TV show, because she pulled out the most incredible performance ever. I mean, even though I was kind of upset that I keep on forgetting the actress so much got nominated for, it's kind of escaping my mind. Just for that alone, it kind of makes me flustered that it sort of like went this way, because everyone loved the Penguin. I mean, it should have won, right? I mean, if you all agree with me that it should have won, or like the actress, I mean, she should have won as well. Even with the other films, especially with Best Animated Film, like, I mean, it should have gone to The Wild Robot, because especially as it won 0 awards, even though it was like the most nominated film in the animation category, but even though it went to Flow, which is a movie that I never even seen or even heard of. I don't know if it's talked about a lot, but just with The Wild Robot, which is the best animated films of all time, also made it into my top 10. It's one of the most beautiful animated films I've ever seen, but even though it was robbed, and even with Sebastian Stan that won Best Actor in a Comedy, and that is with a different man. And you know that it is admitted that this is his first Golden Globe, but even out of the many current people in the MCU, but even for Sebastian Stan that plays Bucky Barnes, a Winter Soldier, but he is committed to being an actor, committed to being a storyteller. And I mean, even though like I'm not sure like how many people in the MCU have won Oscars, Sebastian Stan, it is very much well deserving, because even though there's a lot of stuff that I need to catch up on, but especially with a different man, like I'm pretty sure he gives an amazing performance in that, because it is definitely enough for award season territory. Moving on to the Brutalist, that took home Best Picture, and even with Best Actor, and that's for Adrian Brody, and even with Best Director, and that is Brady Corbett. And I'm pretty sure like it is like deserving, because even though with The Brutalist, that's like described as a 3.5 hour movie, is set in the war era, and people say like it's like the most disturbing movie. And even though like it was admitted that it took like 7 years to make, and just to see the look on his family's faces, including his daughter, it was the most heartwarming to me, knowing that the type of message that he gives, and just with that alone is like enough, especially along with the other best supporting actors, of course, with Kieran Culkin, and also for best original score, and that went to Challengers, which I think it was the best sports drama film, and Zendaya's best movie, and especially with these movies that made it into my top 10, and just basically made it into award season, because I love Challengers, because especially with the people behind the amazing score, and that score, it was like really hitting, because it was like so damn awesome, and just with the soundtrack alone, it was like the best, especially from the intense scenes of what goes on in that film as well. And also with Wicked, that took home cinematic and box office achievement. It was very much well deserved, because I really enjoyed Wicked Part 1. But even though I'm still a little upset that Ariana Grande and Cynthia Avero did not take home any awards, especially for Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress. But you know, it was the way that it had to go. But even though I'm still just with like out of all the awards, like I think people are gonna say, oh, it's rigged, but you know, it's just like the way it is. And now I want to talk about the best highlights out of the entire awards season show, and that is starting off with Vin Diesel. And now as soon as he walked on stage and approached The Rock, but even specifically with this moment for when he said this.
Hey, Dwayne.
And just for that alone, had the internet spiraling, and that was a pretty viral moment to see there, because especially if you don't know the history between these two with Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson, these two had so much rivalry, and these two like hated each other. If you know the Fast and Furious franchise, because even though these two hated each other, it explains so much in the Fast and Furious movies, especially with awkward shots like this, or even though like especially with The Rock, who is now returning in this franchise with Fast 11, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to get that again. But just with that alone, had me laughing out loud just to see Vin Diesel showing appreciation for The Rock. But you know that these two hated each other. But even with, especially with The Rock, and the reaction that he gave, it was basically like a friendly smile, and just so that. Yeah, I mean, that's like a person that trying to be friendly. The next thing is especially with the other presenters, with Anthony Mackie and Harrison Ford that were up on stage, and of course, I think that this was perfect promotion for Captain America: Brave New World, which comes out in February next month. But especially like with this, like I think like with these two, that I give a hilarious moments on stage, especially with Anthony Mackie saying,
"We're still friends with Sebastian Stan, by the way." Oh, my bad.
Just with this alone, it is pure promotion gold, and especially with these two that have an MCU movie coming up, and I'm pretty sure the press tour is going to be so much fun, and it's going to be so hilarious, because I want to know what kind of like viral memes and viral moments from that press tour is going to come with these two that are going to be a part of it, especially with Captain America and Thaddeus Ross, who is going to be Red Hulk. But especially with this moment alone has enough just to get me excited too as well. But even though like just with like all of the awards, especially with like Anora, Wicked, those were stacking losses. But even just with the animation category, because even with Inside Out 2 was a part of that, because that movie did over $1 billion. That was a big comeback for Pixar. But just with like, because I think like, and again, I think the Penguin should have won. But and even with the bits and pieces that went along with this, but especially in between before and after going over categories for like the best for all the nominations, it was like I can't tell if it was not my jam or like it was fun too, I guess. And also to wrap it all up, and I think that this year's Golden Globes were a bit unusual, but it was amazing as well to witness all of the winners revealed for this year's award show. But just wait until the Oscars, man. Like that's gonna be something to talk about and something to recap off of. But even though just with the losses I want to talk about, especially with the Penguin, Dune Part 2, or just with all the animated films, even though with the Wild Robot that should have won, and just with everything else alone, it was kind of frustrating too. Again, like I sort of enjoyed it in that kind of way, but it wasn't at all what we expected. But even Amelia Perez and the Brutalist that took home all the awards, but even with Wicked that took home so little, especially with one award, which is kind of frustrating because I mean, considering the fact that John M. Chu was on stage of being all enthusiastic and being passionate and celebrating positivity when he won that award and gave that speech, but it was like, it was very much deserving as well. But even with Anora, that took home none, but even though it was nominated, but I'm pretty sure people love that movie, but even though like it was too good to be fitting into the competition, because there's like so many good movies that came out back in 2024 that were eligible enough to come into award season, but especially with I think The Substance being entered in there, and with Demi Moore that won her Best Actress award, it was so deserving too as well. So I give this Golden Globe ceremony for 2025 a very solid rating in my book, but at the same time there were losses, snags, but also some definite good winners here as well. I'm pretty sure it'll be remembered too, but even with these losses, but I think like we should just wait until the Oscars to find out like which of these categories are all going to be announced, especially with all the upcoming nominations as well. And yeah, that's all I got, and I think this was a good show as well. But that's going to do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments below, and what were your thoughts on this year's Golden Globes, and who you think should have won, and what were your thoughts on the winners and the losses and the snags, and just with everything that went down in this award show, and what are your thoughts on those highlights, especially with those hilarious moments that will definitely become viral memes online, especially the service on social media as well. Just let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the notifications about future videos, and also follow all my social medias, all the links down below. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.